good. So let's now go to the financial statement itself.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now,
Okay.
the best advice I can give you, I can give two pieces of advice at this stage, right at part 1, question 2.
Yes.
And that is, the legal onus is on you, the person filling this form, to fill it to explain your income to the world. Now,
Okay.
not to the full world, but to the people who are intended to be reading this.
Right.
Usually your former spouse,
yeah,
or their lawyer, or the judge, or the mediator, or the arbitrator, right? Like, in other words, people within that orbit. And so it's your job here to sell yourself, in a sense. Okay.
Well, can I just ask a very quick question here? Sorry, because I do get this, is that some people are very reluctant to put everything down because they think that this is open to the public, because if it's filed at court, potentially people can just go to the courthouse and take a look at this. Is that true? Is that true that this has to be filed with the court and it is potentially?
So if you are in a court proceeding, the answer is 100%. It is open to the public.
Okay, got it. All right.
Okay. You actually bring up a good point, and I'm debating whether to discuss it right here. So I will, in context with the documents that we were discussing before.
Yeah.
That the family law rules actually, and I'm thinking of whether to pull it up right now or not. I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to explain it. The family law rules actually say that when you're providing the documents to the other party, right, like, in other words, not filing it with a court, you have to provide them undoctored, and obviously, and not black lines, nothing redacted. You have to provide them all the documents as is. However, if you are filing with the courts, you can redact. Not only could you should redact. And we'll definitely see this in the assets and debts side, where there are account numbers. Oh, yes. But certainly, even on if you look at a notice of assessment that CRA sends you back after you file your tax return, they will only include the last 4 digits of your social insurance. So that kind of redaction, where you're only showing the last portion of the numbers, is actually in the rules, because of this personal safety, security, privacy issue. Okay. So that's a very good question. So it's your job to sell yourself. And second of all, you have to assume nobody knows what you do. Okay, it's very easy to assume, well, I've been living with this person for however long, right? Yeah. Or if I say I'm employed here, then people just know. But people don't just know. And the more information you provide, the more trust you'll build, and the more credibility you'll build. Okay. So what I like to tell my clients is that, let's say you're employed. Okay, a very simple situation. In family law, we consider people who are employed simple. Not always, though. Right. So it asks you for the name and the address of the employer. Right. But I would also suggest that you include how long you've been employed there. I've been employed, and you could just type it in, blah, blah, blah. I've been employed at this place since 2015. And okay, yeah, it doesn't ask you for that. No. Oh, I know, and that's why we're having this video. And in addition, if you've been promoted, say that also. Like, my position there is, I am the director of filling out forms, right? And I was promoted to this position in 2020. Right. No, March 2020. Right. So, and what does that do for you? What it does is it starts to explain, first of all, what you do, because the form doesn't ask you that. Right. What do you do? It's very busy. That's true. You could be employed, let's say, for Bell Canada. You could be the president, or you could be one of the line, people digging in the ground. Just to show you the vast disparity of jobs that can be there.
Right.
We have no idea. So at least say that, like, this is what I do.
Right.
How long you've been doing it will come into play very soon when we look at this chart down here. Okay.
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 Right. Sounds good.
That idea of putting a bit more information applies for self-employed and unemployed also, and I would say for unemployed especially, because it begs the question: if you are not employed, why? Okay, the form doesn't ask you for why; it just asks you for when. Okay, and you can have a whole real estate empire where you don't do any of the work. You don't do any. You have like you hire third-party managers to manage your real estate empire, and you're just getting all this passive income.
Right.
Are you unemployed there because you're not working? Right. So
wow, that's right.
Right. So somebody who has retired, are you unemployed? Not really. That's not strictly, that's not how we refer to somebody who's retired as being unemployed. So, right. So
that's right. There's no box for retired. Is there?
There's a request for a pension stub here. Well, we'll get to that.
Okay, right.
But the point though is it doesn't ask the why. So take a second, put in the why. You will see how far one sentence can go because it's not asked and you're providing it.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, I know. We've only gone up to question 2, so let's go on.
I had no idea you're allowed to put it extra.
My philosophy is that you have to put in extra.
Wow.
Yeah, and we can't get into a full discussion about self-employed, but we'll get into it a bit when we discuss the actual sources. You'll start to see the kind of questions that are asked just by checking off that you're self-employed. The questions are automatically asked, so you can perhaps answer them before they're asked.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So you just saw before a checklist, and it was 2 pages long at least.
Right. Right.
And here it just has basically question 3 and 5. Right.
Oh yes, I see.
And question 3 is year-to-date income information, and and question 5 is past information. Copy of my personal tax returns and my notices of assessment.
Oh yes, I see it. Yes.
Oh, you see that? Okay. Yeah. The problem I find with a recurringly problem that you will find is, where do you put these pieces of paper? Where do you actually put them?
Yeah.
There's no place to put them. So that's why we started with a place to put them. Now you can understand why I'm so into that, because if you have no place to put them, then you're kind of lost right away.
Yeah.
I also find that people get lost at question number 4. Okay, so let's just talk about the pieces of paper.
Okay.
Most of these documents you'll either get from the source as you receive, or you're going to have to log in online. So for example, the employment insurance stub and a last record of employment, both of those are actually available from the Service Canada website. Okay, now the record of employment is generated by the employer when you lose a job, when you're terminated. Sorry, let's say it more technically. When your job is terminated, and it has some important information in it regarding the why of why you were terminated. But that kind of information you could get online. The statement of income and expenses and professional activities for self-employed individuals is usually, when you don't run a business through a corporation, it's usually on the tax return itself. A little bit of duplication there. In other words, it's about, for a standard business, let's say 3 or 4 pages worth of your tax return. That would be your check mark there. Sometimes when people have non-recurring income or non-stable income, you can ask for your employer just to give a letter confirming how much you've received in a year,
right.
Within the last calendar year or the current calendar year. Okay. Question number 4 asks you for your gross income from all sources. And one of the keys here is that when we are doing a calculation for support, either child support or spousal support, we're looking at your pre-tax income, okay? Or to say it a different way, there's my pay stub. We'll come back to that. I'm going to duplicate so we don't have to keep reloading. On your tax return, the starting point of the legal analysis is line 15,000, formerly line 150. Right here on the bottom of the first page where everything gets tallied, that is the starting point of calculating your income for support purposes. So it doesn't say that here. Last year, my gross income from all sources was, it doesn't say that. It does say do not subtract any taxes, right?
Yeah.
But presumably that's what it's asking. Okay, presumably, what I tell clients is, let's say it's $50,000. You don't have to be pretty. And I actually write line 15,000.
Oh, that's good.
That is good because you're not lying.
Yeah, that's good.
You're just saying what it is. And I'm just going to keep that there actually. Okay. Good. So now let's talk about the boxes.
Right.
So the first thing, I have 2 things to tell you about the boxes.
Okay.
The first thing I want to tell you is actually, this is an incomplete list.
Oh,
okay?
No.
So I'm going to quickly scroll to the back of the financial statement.
Okay.
There's it refers here at number 11 to attach Schedule A. So let's go to Schedule A. So I'm skipping through the whole financial statement.
Oh, yes.
And you'll see additional sources of income.
Okay. Yes,
okay. That's the first thing to know is you can't just complete the initial boxes if you have other things that need to be completed in Schedule A. The second thing I want to tell everybody is this entire box is not meant to calculate your income for support purposes. Okay. So let's just talk about that for a second. You'll hear lawyers say this often. Income for support purposes, as opposed to what? And the answer is, I would say there are 3 definitions of income. There's income as Revenue Canada kind of defines it for the purpose of the tax return.
Yes.
Okay. There's income in whatever your own mind thinks the word income means. Yes. Fine. Okay.
Yeah.
And then in family law, income, there's like actual, so the way we figure out income is we use information from the tax return, but it's not like that is just that's secondhand information. This financial statement is third-hand information.
Right.
Right. You're the best way to think about the financial statement is that you are putting down basic information from which we can extrapolate your income for support.
Oh, okay.
Okay. As defined in law.
I see. Okay.
And let me give you 2 examples of why I say this. Okay.
Okay.
I can give you a bunch, but the 2 easiest ones are number 10 says child tax benefits or tax rebates. Okay. I could tell you that in law, those are not included in your quote unquote income. So, okay, that is not income. Okay. That is something else. That is something else.
Right. Okay.
And maybe I'll take a second just to tell you what that else is. It goes to your means. Your means, okay? Because many times there's a discretionary element of the law and it says we want to look at your needs and means.
That's right.
And that broad statement of means and needs can include the child tax benefits, but it's not income. It's not income. So, you know, if number 13 calculates to $50,000 and you're paying support or sharing it, you know, yeah, even sharing expenses on $50,000, then that's incorrect. That's, you're actually making a mistake, and lawyers make this mistake because they just look at the number, but it's not true. Let me show you one other reason why this list is not complete. Down here in the expenses, which we'll get to in another video, there's a line item for union dues. Okay. So I'm putting it there so you can see it, 10,000. Union dues under the law can be that if you pay them and they're in your tax return, you can deduct them from your line 15,000 income for the purposes of calculating your income for support. So if your income was $50,000 and you pay $1,000 of union dues, then your income for support is really $49,000. Okay. Now, this part 2 expenses is not up here in income. Right? But I just told you that $1,000 can come off your income just like that.
Okay.
Right? And it's not reflected here. So just realize that. Let's go on kind of through each one. I'm not going to go through each one. I don't think it's necessary. Some of it is straightforward, and some of it you can learn from employment income. So let's just talk about that. So employment income, assuming you're working for a third-party employer, okay? And I'm not going to get into complicated cases for this video. Most people get a pay stub. And so let's look at a pay stub. So here we are looking at a pay stub. Right. And take this with a grain of salt. I found it online. Okay, so you know, actually, the biggest question most people ask about the financial statement, about filling this out, is, what am I filling out here? What's the time period that I'm filling this out for? Yes. That's a fantastic problem because it doesn't say.
Yeah, that was my big question.
Yes, and so I'm going to give you some rules of thumb. Okay. Okay. And it really depends on what you're filing this form for, or completing this form for. If you're completing this form because there's a motion to change and you're claiming there's a material change in your income status, for example, that you are no longer employed, and you were employed and now you are no longer employed. So you kind of want to show what your current income is going forward from the point of not being employed. Right. That's not to say you're not going to disclose your total annual income. That's not to say you're not going to disclose your prior income, but you do want to show what your ongoing income is going to be, to the extent that you can figure that out based on, let's say, if you're receiving employment insurance or a severance. Right. If you're starting out and separated and just filling out the form, and in most cases, let's call it 90% of the time, you'll want to fill out the current year income. So this video is being recorded on April 25, 2022, and you would want to figure out what your 2022 income is. Okay. And that's okay. Like, in other words, there are ways to speculate what your income is going to be, even though you haven't received it. And you're not going to prejudice yourself by saying, well, I think my 2022 income is $50,000 and it turns out to be 52,000 or 48,000. Like, as long as you show your work, in a sense, you can explain how you arrived at the income. Even when you lose your job, back to that scenario, you can also figure out your current year income, because you can figure out how much you received until you lost a job, and then extrapolate what you're going to receive for the rest of the year. You could do that as well. So I mean, and it really depends on the circumstances as to what your what information is needed for the objectives that you're looking for,
Okay.
or what kind of information is going to be asked anyway.
I see.
But you want current year. Where this becomes complicated is with people who are self-employed.
Right.
Okay. And it's at this moment, when we talk about self-employed for a second, that I would say to you, you have to differentiate between the concept of income and cash flow.
Okay.
So I was thinking of an idea of how to give this, to demonstrate this, and I'm going to use you, Heather. Okay, so imagine the government of Ontario sees your videos and says, "Oh my God, we've been wasting all of our time here. We have an amazing resource. We're going to pay you, Heather, $100,000,
Oh.
okay, to make 10 videos.
Okay.
So $10,000 a video,
Right.
and you have 1 calendar year to finish this.
Okay.
Okay,
Mhm.
and I can tell you from experience, to all those who are watching, Heather's extremely on top of things. So, so she gets those 10 videos done, you know, from thought to post-production, completely done by June 30th.
Right. Okay.
Right? Okay. And she gets, and you get your payment on June 30th of the full amount.
Mhm.
Okay. So here's hoping. As of July 1st,
Right.
as of Canada, are you unemployed? Is question number 1. And question number 2 is, should you be paying support based on $200,000 because you could make $100,000 in 6 months?
Oh my
Or
gosh, yeah.
like what's that? What are you in that circumstance? And the answer is you're self-employed. Right? You're working for a client.
Yeah.
You've been hired on contract.
Right.
And that contract runs for a period of time, but there's no control over you as to how you do your work. So within that year, you are completely self-employed. And the fact that you earn your money in the middle of the year doesn't take away the fact that you are employed for all of that, you know, self-employed for the entire of the year. Okay.
Right.
You know, we can't get stuck on the idea of the employed person who gets a consistent pay stub, because self-employed do not get consistent. Even employed people can be inconsistent on one hand, they can be commission based on another,
Right.
and they can receive bonuses, which all affect cash flow. Right? And so we can't, you know, you can't say I'm not paying in November because I got all my pay in June. Right? You're being paid for the year $100,000, and that is your income, even though it's not your cash flow.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
Got it.
I know it's somewhat confusing, but the point is that in 2023, you would say to me, I don't have that contract yet, or whatever, right?
Right.
So I don't know what my 2023 income is going to be.
Right.
You would say that to me in 2023, and to which I would say, you're 100% right. We're going to have to use 2022, that $100,000 number, unless we have better information. So to recap, when we're going to be looking at the financial statement, and we're going to be filling out this these boxes, which asks you for the monthly amount received per month, we're going to try to figure out your annual income, usually over the calendar year, divided by 12, even if it doesn't reflect your actual cash flow.
Makes sense. Okay, got it.
It makes sense, but if you have a severe cash flow issue, you should note it. It should be noted.
Interesting. Okay.
I once represented a stockbroker. He made $125,000 as a base income and $700,000 as as his year-end bonus. And like, can he pay support over on $800,000 or whatever that is, in a sense, right? Because of that cash flow problem. And the answer is no. I mean, it's difficult. So it should be noted at the least. What we do with it, I mean, we can be creative. But to start, we're just trying to build information here. So back to income. So this pay stub tells me a few things, but what the point of showing it is to try to extrapolate what this person's income is based on this pay stub. So the starting point is, what's the date of the pay stub? And on this one, it's 2013, 0905. So September of 2013, okay, work with me here. And you look at the year to date, and you see $15,000 for regular income. And you can see the current amount on this pay stub is $5,000, to which we can kind of extrapolate that if this person receives $5,000 per pay, there have been 3 pays. Okay.
Okay.
But that's all this person has received, which means that it's a new job, relatively speaking. And I would want to know what happened before that new job in the same calendar year. So that's where going back to that first question of how long you've been in a position is very helpful. Because when that, right? Now, most people, when they're paid a pay stub, they receive it on a consistent basis, and consistent can mean different things to different people. It really depends on the job. And the most typical are, you're going to have some people who receive weekly, but predominantly you're going to have people who receive bi-weekly, which is another way of saying every 2 weeks over a calendar. Payroll calendars are usually on a Thursday, Friday basis every 2 weeks. And over the course of a calendar year, you'll usually have 26 pays.
Right.
Okay. So very technically, if this person had consistent work and this was now the following year and the year to date was not 15,000, I could take that $5,000 amount. Okay. And we'll talk about the overtime in a second. And times that by 26 to come up with a number. So definitely have a calculator handy when you're filling out this form. But you also have to be careful, because not everybody is paid on a 26 pay calendar.
Right.
Some people are paid on a 24 pay calendar, which is like the 15th and the 30th. Right. So you have to be very mindful. You know, you're, as the person completing the form, you should know, you ought to know what your pay schedule is. And if the form allowed it, and I don't think this form allows it, that's part of the problem here. Half of me would suggest that if you're using the government form, just use up here where it's not even, use this space as comments on your income. Okay, like in other words, you use what you got.
Got it.
So yeah, so we have so the basic income. So let me just play that game. 5,000 times 26 is $130,000. Oops. And I'm putting that over here. And then you have to divide that by 12.
Right, right.
And now it says 10,833. Okay. Can you put the pennies down? Yeah, you should put the pennies down. Why not? Tips and commissions and bonuses, they're tricky. And commissions in particular, you might have expenses that you write off against those commissions. Even when you're employed, you might have employment expenses that you are allowed to deduct from them. And again, I would recommend it, if that's the case, to use the space above, or if you have more different form, to use to make those notes that, you know, this is my total commissions and these are the expenses that I write off, you know, that I deduct from them. And again, with commissions, just like with self-employed, you may not have a good sense of what current income is going to be in the current calendar year. So if it makes sense, if there have been no substantial changes in your employment circumstances, to use the prior year as your base and just say that I'm using 2021 as representative of my 2022 until I know better. Okay. Okay, and now we're going to just talk quickly about self-employment income, and really this deserves a video of its own or a course on its own.
Right.
When you're self-employed, you have to build trust, okay? That idea of building trust plays a huge factor in the outcome of your separation, and certainly on a motion to change.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just explain in broad strokes what we're looking for here. Right here in this box, which I'm just going to mark with gross, okay? That is supposed to be the receipts of money from clients and or whatever you call your clients, without looking at any expenses. And so some industries, I'll give you a very good example. When I started practicing, I had a taxi driver and nobody believed his income. Not me, definitely not the judge, certainly not the other party. Mm-hmm. And because taxi drivers are known to get tips. Mm-hmm. Okay, and most of their income is from the tips, and most of those tips are not declared. Mm-hmm. The CRA, mm-hmm. It's the nature of the business. I don't even say that with judgment, it's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. And fast forward, I had a client who was an Uber driver, mm-hmm. and everything's on paper, mm-hmm. right? Even the tips are all on a statement. Mm-hmm. So goal number one when you're self-employed is to be very clear that the amount of your gross income that you are showing either on your income tax return for the professional activities, the business activities, and or if you have a corporation or a partnership, that whatever that gross amount is actually is your gross income. Because if you have cash income, we have ways of trying to figure that out. But more than that, said positively, you will have so much more credibility if you say, it is true, I have some other income, mm-hmm. than what is on my tax return. And many people are concerned that they're going to get reported to CRA. Mm-hmm. I've never seen it in my career. Mm. And on the flip side, you should be reported to CRA. Well, what are you doing? Right? Okay. Yeah. So that's on the gross side. Right. Now, do you see my cursor, Heather?
I do.
Okay. So you see the line right over here before the dollar sign. That line is where your expenses from business are made off the gross to get you to a net number, which shows up on the on your financial statement. Mm. And 80% of the litigation and the agita and the wasted money when you are self-employed is explaining how you got from gross to net and whether yes. it's reasonable or not. And unfortunately, the form doesn't ask you that question. How did you get from gross to net? It just asks you what is gross, what is net.
Right.
And to that extent, I'm just going to say you should prepare for it. Okay, and there are different methods of preparing. I would tell you to speak to a lawyer on a limited basis, even just for a consultation, mm-hmm. to look over your financial information, mm-hmm. and get ahead of that issue. And again, I don't think this form is the right way, this video is the right place to do it. Because on this video, I'm gonna actually recommend that you do put whatever you put on your tax return, your gross and your net, just do it. That's what's asked.
Right.
But just be aware that that is not the correct answer in law. That's the starting point of a much bigger discussion. Okay. Much of the other information is straightforward. Even on the schedule, you'll find the partnership income, the rental income, rental income, just so you should know, there's black and white law about making adjustments to it, which are not asked for in this form. So again, you're putting in a gross over here, and there's going to be a net, and expect to explain it.
I
Okay.
see. Okay.
There is law on dividends. There's law on capital gains.
Yes.
There's even case law on RRSPs.
Okay.
Okay. Because you may be splitting your RRSPs as part of the property section, and you may say that's not fair to pay support on the same income. So all of these line items have some form of law attached to them that is not asked for on this form, and it's worth that consultation to figure out, to get ahead of that conversation and be ready for it.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. Lastly, other benefits. So I include this as part of income, and it is part of income. And other benefits can range from, if you're employed, your employer might be paying towards certain expenses like a cell phone, or payments into your pension, like the employer contributions. If you're self-employed, your business, quote unquote, and I in quotes because it could encompass a sole proprietorship like that you put on your tax return, or a corporation or a partnership. Right. Those entities might be paying expenses that that are non-cash benefits to you. In other words, you're getting use of something that you're not actually being paid money in your pocket or into your bank account. And some of those that I just listed will be included in your income and law. Some of those will not, okay, which makes life complicated. But the point is that you're putting it down on the form for information purposes. So just because you put it down on this form does not mean that it's automatically going to be included in your income. It may be considered as part of means, going back to that idea. And just the other confusing part of this box is that whereas the expenses that follow and the income box before ask you for information that is based on a monthly amount, this one asks you for a yearly amount.
Okay.
Yeah, so just be mindful of that.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, so at this point, I'm just going to stop talking about income. And so I want to just reiterate, the more information you provide upfront, the more trust you're going to build, the more credibility you're going to earn, and ultimately, the sooner you're going to be able to pursue what you need, what you want to pursue. So, and that is the goal here.